Okay, so we'll try to cover up each and everything in a bit pace way so that we'll have some time more to cover up over here. Otherwise, we will be stuck in basic only. So, I mean, with respect to access specifier in Java, I mean, see, as you can create public, private, protected, and default. I mean, default you need not to write, but public, private, protected that you can create for any variable and methods, right? So, if you see in code, I mean, if you have any variable, like suppose you go there to made a code, control shift. You need to search any file, you need to do control shift R. Okay, so student at Java. See, so if you see over here, I mean, for this variable, there is a for any variable or any method, you must be having a return type, right? Until unless this is constructor. So as we got to know, like for any method, we'll have return type. For any variable, we'll have a return type as well over. I mean, not return type, but for that data type over here for any variable. So for any method, return type, for any variable, data type, and before that, it depends on us what access specifier we want to provide over here. If we won't provide anything, then it will be taken as a default. So when you make it as a default, what will happen? In the same packet, if any class will try to access that, it means as we seen like in that private constructor, if from other classes you want to create an instance, right, or you want to access any method that is having a default, I mean you have not specified anything public, private, or protected, then it will be accessed in the same package. But if you try to access that same thing from a different package, then it won't be accessible. Fine. So similar way, for any method, if you are going to define public, private, or protected, so here where all you can access it, the same thing has been defined. Private we have already seen in the same class, either variable or method that can be accessed. In a default, in the same package it can be accessed. In a protected, there is only a one condition in a protected, where a subclass can only access that method or variable. I mean, here if you try to do some practical, you will see even though for variable also you will get a problem. So basically, always for a method, I will say that you will be able to access for any class from a different package. But for public, anywhere if you want to access that method, you will be able to do. And one more thing you just note down as a best practice, whenever you are going to define any variable, never ever define public or leave it default or define as a, I mean, protected. You always try to define this as a private, and you create a getter setter over here. So from a setter, you will be able to set this value. From a getter, you will be able to get this value back over there. Fine. And constructor, only you try to create a parameterized constructor if you want to create some default variables whenever you are trying to instantiate that object. So that is very simple. Fine. Any question here? So one activity I would like to give you all, for a protected thing. You try to create a variable as a protected. Fine. And as it is written over here, in a different package, if a subclass is created, it should be able to access that variable or method. But I would say if you will try to access this variable, I believe that will show a problem. You can access only methods, but still you can try. Fine. So with this, any query for this? Any query by anyone? Okay, can I move to next slide?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we covered this thing. I mean, method name, and then before that return type should be there. Then you can define any specifier, and I'll also cover about finally another thing, other modifier that used to come over there. Parameter list. This is the way that you can define. So this is called as a method signature. Okay, and then whatever you define inside this, that is called as the method body. Variables we have covered. So we'll come to most important part over here, that is known as exception handling. So I mean, if you create any code that is not going to have exception handling, so you be ready for the disaster. So exception handling is a must to have in your program. Okay, and this is the hierarchy where you see there are two classes. One is exception, one is error. Okay, so exception is supposed to be handled by you. I mean, you write any code, you will catch that exception, and you will write the, method what it need to be done. Either it need to print only the exception or anything that you want to take care. I mean, suppose null pointer exception is coming, then you want to initialize that variable with some object so that you can catch and you can handle that. But you never have to do same thing with error. However, I won't tell you. I'll ask you all. Shall we handle the error as well?
No, sir.
Yeah. So we should not be handling the error because error means, I mean, uh, with a simple example, out of memory error is there. What we can do? We cannot add hardware over there, right? We can just provide the information to user. If a stack overflow error is there, we cannot add, more memory or more stacks over there, right? We cannot add a runtime, memory increase, something like that, or linkage error is there. Fine. So error we need not to handle that. And and here comes my another question. I mean, that is a kind of puzzle only if you'll get in some objective related things. So you should be able to answer that correctly because sometime in some competitions or some organization, they want to have some expertise Java. So they used to ask if suppose I'll write here catch error. I mean, as you know, we should not be handling the error. But if I write here catch error, then what will happen? Will my code get compiled or will I get any runtime error? What will happen?
Sir, will you please repeat?
Yeah, I'm asking, as you all told, we should not be handling the error, right? I mean, because out of memory error, stack overflow error, verify error, I mean, this we cannot, handle it, right? Uh, we can only, we cannot handle it. We should not be handling the error. And we should always be handling the exceptions, right? So that is how this try catch exception and try catch finally block has been created. So in general, what we do in the catch block, we write that particular exception and then we handle it. It depends on us how do we want to handle. So I'm asking, if I write here error, catch error, although we should not be handling that, then what will happen? Will it get compiled or not, or will we get any runtime error?
I guess it won't be compiled.
Okay, any other person? So let us see. Let us see. Let us try. Fine. Uh, somewhere I had created this.
It is a runtime error, then it will compile and then it will give a runtime error.
Okay. So chalo, let us try. Let us try over here. Just call testing exception concept. Okay. So important point. See, with respect to basic of coding only. If you see over here, uh, uh, if I'm creating any method over here, directly I'm trying to call it from the static method. So then also I need to create it as an static method. Okay. I believe you all must be aware of that. If I create any variable in a similar, the way we have created, but if I write here static, so it means it is kind of global variable. Okay, it is at a class level. So similar way, if I create any method static, it is a kind of class level method. Okay, and if I have written any method directly calling from static to static, so that is possible. Okay, but suppose this method is not static, then if I need to call this method, then I'll have to call this. I'll have to create the object, and then only I'll have to call this method like m dot testing exception concept. If I write, then it will work. Okay, so I'm just calling it directly. So this is okay, right? This concept is already clear to you all, right?
Yes.
Okay, fine, fine. So here what I'm going to do, let us test something. I mean, what we can just over to try error. Testing, let us surrounded by try catch exception. So okay, so what will happen over here? Yeah, tell me what will happen if I'll call this testing exception concept.
Sir, first of all, there will be exception because arithmetic exception division by 0. So testing will not be printed and directly it will go to the catch block and this exception occur will be printed.
Correct. So here exception occurred. So I mean null pointer exception has come. And in general, just to let you know, the best practice actually when you will implement similar code in your organization, I mean never ever take it this exception superclass. If you know what kind of exception can occur over here, then just try to provide the correct classes over there. So that actually always help you all. So here I mean exception you can give at a last if you are not clear. However, you can provide multiple catch exception, right? So there only you try to handle that. And in general, when you are not sure, you need to write this method always over there. Print stack trace. Okay. So I mean, what will happen? Null exception will come here. Null. So, I mean, this hierarchy also you must be aware. I mean, you always have to write the subclasses exception on the top and the parent class exception on the bottom. Like if you sure IO exception or I mean run this in general. I mean one more thing I would like to explain over here. The checked exception and unchecked exception. So first let us see. I mean we were talking about error. So you told if I write here error, then it will throw a problem or compilation error. So here see, I have written error. No problem is there. So compilation error is not there. So you were saying runtime error will also come. See, runtime error is also not come. Okay. So I mean, what I want to let you know, error we should not handle. However, in a Java syntax, if you would like to write, then you can write it. That is not a problem. Okay. So make this concept clear. Now one more last query. Suppose we want to write a code. I mean hypothetically I am telling you should never ever do that. You want to handle exception and error both in one block only. I mean this will be asked in interview, that's why I am just letting you all know. If you want to handle exception and error both only in one block, would it be possible or not? I mean this is just to test your knowledge. Because if you will tell this answer, automatically it is answering many other things as well. If you need to handle as I showed you, like error you can handle, right? In a cache block you can write error, but suppose you want to write some code where exception and error both can be handled, I mean through one block only, can it be possible? And
Sir,
how?
we can write or
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 No, that won't work actually. See, in a catch block, this is not a conditional statement, right? It is not a if block or while block. Here you can only give the arguments, right? I mean, suppose, I am taking error argument. So see, it is not allowing me. So, I mean,
Sir,
there is
straight
only one
line.
argument we can pass. Yeah, tell me one thing. Tell me.
So I was talking about that straight line we can use.
Yeah. See, straight line also, that is condition. It is not conditional statement, boss. See, this whatever
Sir,
or
just
statement,
one single, just single one.
thus this one only. See, understand. See, uh, whatever or statement and statement that you are saying me na, that is that is control statement. That is in conditional statement only. That will never ever come in this try catch or method. See, if you are going to write this method, right? Tell me the argument. You can only write the argument, right? Int I, comma int j, right? You cannot write int I or j. So that syntax itself is incorrect, right? I mean, just to show you also, I mean, the way you are saying me. Mm, See, if you see here, I mean, when we write while, when we write if block, right? Conditional statement. If browser is equal to Safari, browser is equal to Edge. Here we can write or condition or and condition. But this is not a method. This is else if condition. This is conditional statement. We cannot write these things inside the method. So similarly, I mean, this try catch, this is a block, this is a method. This is not a conditional statement. Okay?
So can we pass two arguments to catch block?
Yeah, two arguments are not allowed over here in the catch block.
So if we write exception and that or and that error, if actually if we have to catch multiple exception in one block, then in online it was written like you can use that or method. That's why we were saying to use or.
Yes,
No,
sir.
or you cannot write.
Sir, in that it was written like first exception, then the or, the second exception, and afterwards e. It was written like that, and at that time it was working.
I cannot believe that. That should not. I mean, in a book only it can run, but practically it can never ever run. Have you tried that? Running it?
No, sir.
Yeah. So I mean, you should always try whatever you read, right? So here also, I mean, you are getting the example. I'm coming to that point actually. But why I am asking that question? Actually, we should never ever do that. See, when I'm saying if I am writing exception, what is happening? Any exception, I mean, any subclass of exception that is going to come over here, everything will be handled inside this exception block, right? I'm not defining anything arithmetic exception, file not found exception, array index out of bounds exception, number format exception, illegal argument exception. I'm not writing multiple block. I have written only one block, catch exception E. Everything will be handled over here, right? So similar way, you need to see. I mean, so why it is happening? Because all the child classes are handling through the parent class. So what is the parent class for exception and error? That is throwable.
Throwable.
So if you write here throwable, automatically everything either that is as an exception or error, it will be handled, right? So this will give you, I mean, one more lesson. In a future, if you are going to create your custom exception class, okay, and you want to handle any child class related exception in a single block, you can write a parent class exception in a catch block. Okay, and no or block, I mean no if condition related thing, that will come only in control statement, and no two arguments or three arguments are going to be there in the catch block. only one argument will always be there, and multiple catch blocks are given. That's why the reason we have multiple catch block. If suppose multiple arguments were supposed to be there, then we could have written only one catch block. Okay, so I mean this will give you a more understanding with respect to subclasses, parent classes also. And I mean we should, I mean ideally the best practice is there only to handle the exception. We should not be handling the error, but Java does not stop you. Okay, because any of libraries are allowing you to do that. So now we'll come to other thing, checked exception and unchecked exception. So anyone aware of this? Why do we call it as a checked exception, and why do we call some other unchecked exception?
Sir, checked exception occur at compile time and unchecked at runtime.
Yeah, simple. I mean, because at compilation time it is being checked, so it is called a checked exception. If anything is not going to be checked as an compile time and then runtime exception you will get, then that is called as unchecked exception. So ideally for checked exception also we should not be providing the catch block, because if you are able to see that error over there only, so try to avoid that. I mean with respect to null pointer exception, always see, I mean we should never be getting, as an code best practice, we should never ever be getting I mean any object as a null. So suppose you are writing any block sometime in future in a way like if object I mean is equal to null, that is best, I mean that is really worst practice. You should be writing object not equal to null. You always need to check object should never be null. Okay, so I mean this is the way you will, I mean once you will create more program and you will implement the solution, you will get to know. So I mean try catch exception. I hope it is clear now. And one more thing with respect to finally, I mean everyone must be knowing this finally block where
Sir, can you please explain null pointer exception?
see, null pointer exception means suppose I am going to create a new object over here for my main. I mean my main is equal to null. Okay, and now suppose I am calling a method here m new dot student or like so here actually I'll get the null exception. Fine. So what will happen? See, see, I mean sorry, arithmetic expression, I need to comment it out. See what is happening over here. I mean this value is got null, maybe due to some any condition. I've hard coded it over here. But suppose in the future you write some big programs and there some due to some condition it is becoming null. Then you are going to call any method over here. Then it will become I mean it will throw null pointer exception. And suppose in your code, if you are in organization, you get to know like null pointer exception is coming, then you need not to handle it over here. I mean you need not to write the code as an exception to handle it here. Why? You should be handling this, you should be knowing the reason why it is becoming null, and that particular condition you should be resolving that. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I mean that's what I just wanted to let you know as a code best practice. You should not handle null pointer exception as well, although you can handle the way you can handle error also, but you should be knowing the condition why it is becoming null, and then try to find out that particular reason, resolve that, and then run your program. Okay, so that is the reason actually we, I mean in general, try to avoid this kind of parent class of exception to write in a best practice, because it will catch everything. You will never ever get to know what is the main problem that is happening with your code. Okay, so I mean if you want to score good in your written examination or in a hands-on examination, you try to avoid writing this exception as a common thing. Try to mention directly the exception that you know, Until unless you are very unclear, like anything can happen, then you write exception at first, you run and you try to print out all those exception, then try handling those catch exception individual level later on. Okay, so we'll come to finally block. Finally, I think everyone must be aware if I mean either exception happen or not, this finally block will always be executed, right? So I mean so tell me one thing. I mean, what will be printed over here? Okay, tell me the output of this program. Simple program.
First exception and finally.
First exception finally. Okay, let us run. Yeah, static init, I mean, you can ignore it as of now. Let me comment it out. Yeah, first exception finally. Fine. So now if I'll comment this. Now what should be the output?
First, testing, and finally.
First testing and finally, correct. Yes, because exception is not coming, so exception block is not running. But finally is always running. Either exception coming and or not. Now tell me one thing, if I write this try finally only, is it okay to write? Will it
Yes,
compile?
sir.
Will it so throw runtime error?
Sir, it will
run.
work.
It will throw runtime error. Let us see.
So it will run.
It will not. Okay. Now let us do one thing. Let us create exception. Let us see. I have not written catch block here. Compilation error is also not there. See, because it is runtime exception. Fine. So see, it is throwing the exception, but we haven't handled that. So why you write catch block? Because you also need to handle that exception. I mean, in case exception happen, then what you want to do? So that is the importance of catch exception. So I hope concepts are clear with respect to try catch block also. And it is must. Yeah.
Sir, I tried that catching multiple exception in that single catch block and it was working, sir.
Okay, you can share me here also if you have that code as of now. Otherwise, I mean,
Sir, I simply wrote arithmetic exception, the or operator, and null pointer exception, and wrote e. And above, like you have written int I is equal to 2 divided by 0. If you uncomment it, then I think it should run.
okay, let me try. Int I is equal to 2 by 0. Here, what I should do? Arithmetic exception,
So
right?
here we can write the name of the exception that we want to catch. Arithmetic and null pointer we can write.
Okay, fine. Null pointer exception. Okay, NL. Okay, and then OR block.
Sir, no, not N1.
Not N1.
Delete that
Sir.
N1 and place one OR operator.
Okay,
The
now
OR
OR operator. Okay, fine, understand. Now arithmetic exception, huh?
Yes, sir.
Okay, now what to
And
do?
after that, the exception e, we write the
Okay,
variable
fine, understand.
like this. Sir, it was actually working.
Okay, yeah, because it is not showing compilation, it should be working fine. Null pointer exception, arithmetic exception, or the block is converted. Okay. Yeah, it will work fine. Let us see. But tell me one thing, how would you get to know? I mean, it is throwing the null pointer exception or it is throwing the arithmetic exception? I mean, where the error has come?
Yes, like if we can print the error, we're using that variable e, but that thing is like the only way we can know.
Yeah, yeah. I
We
mean, but better
c-
way it is not to do in this way, right? Because uh,
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
any unnecessary confusion will be there, and I mean that is not the best practice to follow. That fine. But thanks for letting me know
Yes.
as well. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. So let us do one thing now. Come to our data type things. See, I mean, data type, return type, by method, before method, we understood we should be writing the return type, whatever you are going to return from method, that you need to write it here as a return type. Void means nothing you are going to return, int, float, double, or any object name that you are going to return from the method. The similar way, if I define anything before variable name, then it will be known as a data type. I mean, what is the type of data that you are going to create? Either that is integer, that is boolean, that is character. So there are two ways. I mean, one is known as primitive variables. Primitive variables mean boolean or numeric. In a numeric also, character will also come as a numeric. Then integer, and then in an integer also there are four categorization: byte, short, int, long. So it is important for you to just know how much size will be taken in a memory. Okay. So whenever you are going to, define any variable as an integer, so 32 bit size will be taken inside the memory. So that you should be always aware. So I mean, similar way, suppose you are going to create any student object. So in a student object, suppose you have created only one variable as an student ID, and that is a double student ID. So it will take 64 bit. So if you are going to create maybe 100 instances of a student object, so 100 into that much variable size, that much memory will be taken inside your RAM. So I mean, this is what is the basic understanding you should be knowing. I mean, when you define any data type, it is very much important for you to know that much particular size that you are going to take by defining that variable of the data type. Will it require or not? I mean, suppose you only need one character, so you need not to define a string. You can just define a char, right? So similar way, suppose you know the range of any your variable that can never ever exceed like 32,768, right? So you need to create that short data type. So what it is going to help you, it is going to help you to utilize your memory that has been given to you in a much better way. However, nowadays actually, I mean, although we use cloud, right, there is in a cloud we never ever face any problem with respect to memory related thing. However, the costing computation, because that is being cost, I mean, the whatever the manipulation or multiplication or any computation you are doing, on that basis we need to charge a cost. So then there could be some, it can be helpful if you still define, I mean, uh, correct data type, because in a scientific way, I mean, suppose you are going to work on any scientific project, maybe in the future you work for ISRO or NASA, so then these data types becomes very much important for you to utilize, right? Like in a float or double, right? And a boolean true or false only is there. So that is what main important thing you need to take care with respect to defining the data type. And implicit data type, implicit type casting, what do you mean, as I told you, like, see, I mean, similar way, suppose in a glass of water you want to put it inside a bucket, it can easily go, but from a bucket water you want to put inside in a glass water, so many things will get float away, right? So similar way, when you do the type conversion in a Java, if you are assigning any byte variable to short, it is easy. You are assigning anything to short to integer, then also it can be done the similar way, it can be done to long. But if you are going to do opposite way, so then compilation time error you will get. So you will have to, still you want to do it, then explicitly you can define that in a bracket, and then it can be done. Fine. I mean, you should never ever try to, I mean, assign long to integer or integer to short. If you're getting that error, then just update the data type variable only. Fine. So this is with respect to implicit type conversion. Maybe later on I'll let you know about wrapper classes as well. I mean, I'll ask you, is Java pure object-oriented programming language or not?
Types.
Pardon? Is Java object-oriented? I mean, Java is object-oriented programming. Is it called pure object-oriented programming or not?
It's not pure object-oriented programming language because it supports primitive types such as int,
Correct.
float, double, etc.
Correct. So to cater that, actually, what happened in Java 5, we got to know about this wrapper classes. I mean, similar classes has been created the way we are having the primitive variables. We have integer, double, big decimal. I mean, those classes are also created. So I mean, you can define object of those classes, and then also you can initialize the variable. So I mean, if you want to follow that, then it will become a pure object-oriented programming. Fine. So I mean, one more maybe I am having a PPT with respect to OOPS concept. That is also very much important for you all to. Okay, no issue. So, I mean, before coming to this, I mean, before completing this memory management part also, I would like to let you all know, I mean, with respect to coding, if you'll have to tell me the concept of object-oriented programming, as you all know, abstraction, encapsulation, polymorphism, inheritance. Okay, so how would you let me know this in coding? So I'll start with encapsulation. So in a coding, also if you'll have to tell me what is encapsulation, then how will you tell me in this code? Or maybe I can open much better code. Suppose this one. So here, what is encapsulation?
Sir, encapsulation basically means that we're combining methods and some fields together under one single class.
Okay,
So here, as you can see,
tell me the theoretical version of encapsulation that we read in general. It is of data hiding, right? Or data, what is that? I mean, if anyone asks you what is encapsulation in a exam that you write that definition, what is that? Anyone, if you can tell, then we will relate it here.
Everything should be put in a capsule and then we should use that capsule. So there will be data hiding.
Data hiding, right? Okay. So tell me
We
in this
cannot
code.
access the data.
Yeah. Okay, fine. So tell me in this code, like, you were telling something, right? I mean, method binding. I mean, is that method binding encapsulation or anything else? How we are hiding the data over here?
sir, actually we are using here private access modifier. So the variables will only be accessed in this class. And for if you want to use another class, then we have to use getters and setters for that. So directly we
Exactly.
can't, take the value from the variable.
Very good, very good. Yeah. So encapsulation means access specifier that we read, right? Private, public, default. That is actually encapsulation in object-oriented programming. Fine. So now we'll come to other thing. What is there? Abstraction. What is abstraction?
Sir, in abstraction, we generally hide the implementation details.
Okay. How do we do that?
Means, sir, we use abstract classes and methods. Generally, we define an abstract class. Then in that, we just declare the abstract method. We do not define the whole function body. When if we are extending the abstract class, we just override the method.
Okay. I mean, according to me, this is wrong answer. Anyone else? What is abstraction in terms of object-oriented programming concept? I'm not asking about abstract class. People get confused over here only. You answer you have given right. I mean, people always say we create the abstract class and that is abstraction. That is not abstraction with respect to object-oriented programming concept.
Abstraction means implementation hiding. That means that the user doesn't need to know the what is the internal implementation of the function. He just need to get the value from the function. He doesn't need to know the internal implementation of the function we are writing in the code.
So here I have created simple Java program. How will you tell me what is abstraction over here? I mean, even here in this my main method, I am using abstraction concept of object-oriented thing. How will you let me know what is abstraction here? Okay, now relate your definition over here. Abstraction means when we are creating a class, simple class that we are creating, right? So what we are doing, we are defining the variables, we are defining the methods over here, right? Any methods, number of methods can come over here, right? So how you will access it? When you will create an instance of it and then you will call that method, right? So suppose I mean any execution of method that you have done, so for suppose multiplication, division, right? So what you are doing, you are just creating an instance, you are calling that multiplication method. By passing that argument you are getting that result, right? So what you are doing, the same definition that you are telling, you are just trying to do that in a class. So in a simple class that you are creating, where you are creating that definition, and when you are calling from the implementation point of view, creating an instance, calling that method, you are getting that result, that is called an abstraction. So any class that you create where you define that definition of methods, right, that is actually an abstraction from object oriented point of view. That is not when we create only abstract class. Understand?
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. So other thing what left actually, and now that is with respect to inheritance. What do you mean by inheritance?
Inheritance means taking some properties or
Yeah.
some methods from the parent class.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
can
I
see
mean,
that.
correct. Inheritance, everyone must be aware of that. I mean, the way animal we have as in parent class, in a dog, some common thing will come. So inheritance also clear. I mean, and then another thing that is left, that is polymorphism. So polymorphism, anyone can let me know what is polymorphism?
So polymorphism means using one thing in many forms. You can see that. Simple example of this can be method overloading.
Okay, correct. And overriding as well or not?
Yeah, they are between. It is a runtime polymorphism and compile time polymorphism.
Yeah, correct, correct. I mean, what do you mean by compile time polymorphism and runtime polymorphism?
Sir, if suppose there are two methods with different signatures, then Java will try to um, determine which method to use at runtime, depend upon the number of parameters. So that is known as runtime polymorphism.
Runtime polymorphism means method overriding, and compile time polymorphism means method overloading.
Correct, correct. Fine. So I'll also cover overloading and overriding in detail, so that I mean, with respect to interviews, when you get to, I mean, some questions are being asked so that you get confused. So I'll also cover that. So I mean, fine. I mean, object-oriented concept we covered. Fine. So let us come back to this memory management in JVM. I mean, as I told you, I mean, class loader will be there. Class loader will load the class, and also will like to let you all know. I mean, whenever the class are loaded, then a verification is also being done. I mean, with respect to class linking and then verification of that class, that is also being taken care by the class loader. Now if you see over here, I mean let me made it from presentation mode also. The screen is visible, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I mean, just only with respect to memory management, if you see over here, you can see class method area, heap, stack, PC register, native method stack, and then it is calling execution engine. Native method interface is also there. Native method libraries are also there. I mean, basically, that what you mainly have to understand whenever you are going to create. The way we are having in this my main. I mean. Class, we are having this main method, right? So internally also it is going to create a main thread, and in that main thread a private stack will be assigned to that particular thread. And whenever we are going to call any number of method inside this main method, those all are going to club in that particular stack. Okay, so I mean every thread used to have its own stack where the way you are calling the method, it will going to be assigned there in a first come serve basis. Okay, so I mean it is going to pile up one by one on that stack whenever the last method is going to, that is why it is called actually as a stack, where we call first in and last out. So whatever the last method that has come over there, that execution will be done and it will be pop out. So every thread will have its own stack always, fine. And you are going to create any new object, so variable will be there inside this stack, and it will be referring to the object that is going to be created in a heap. So heap will be a separate area and stack will also be a separate area. In a stack, you will always have a variable which will be pointing to object that has been created in a heap side. Okay, so I mean, and for every stack, it will be there for each thread. If you are going to have, you are going to work on multi-thread environment, you are going to have 10 threads. So every 10 thread have its own stack. Fine. So that's how it is actually working inside. And with respect to heap space also, I mean, Eden space, I mean, these are kind of four generation space that is being known over here. I mean, what used to happen whenever you are going to create any new object, fine. So that will be inside the Eden space. Okay, when suppose this Eden space is full, then what will happen? Your garbage algorithm will run, and it will see which object is being still referring or not. If it is still being referred, then it will go to survivor space. Okay, and if anything is that is not going to refer, that will be deleted. Similarly, again after some time, when this survivor space will be full, then again this garbage algorithm will run. It will see what all the variables is still there that is still being referred by any I mean what all the objects are there that are still being referred by any variable. Then again it will go to old generation, and if anything that is not being referred, that will be deleted. So that's how this garbage memory actually works. And similar way, I mean again in the old generation, something is being referred for a longer time of period, then it will go to permanent generation space, fine. And then if suppose this permanent generation space is also full, then you will get out of heap memory error. Okay, so in that case you will have to increase your memory space that has been taken by heap. There will always be a default memory space that will be given to heap, but it also depend on you. You want to increase it, that also you can increase. But first thing you will have to do over there, you will have to find out the reason for that. When it can happen, you have written bad programming, or maybe you will have created multiple unnecessary variables, multiple unnecessary objects that are, I mean, unnecessary getting referred and being not become validated for garbage collection. That may also happen. So code review also must be done so that you can find out the reason. Like for an example, array list, I mean array list internally create an array, right? So I mean by default some size is there for array, so 10 arrays size of array is there, and you are going to insert any number at 11th position. So double, what will happen internally, array size will be doubled, right? But still there will be 9 space that will be left. So 10 to 20 array size will internally happen, but what will happen at 11th position only you have entered the value, but rest of the 9 memory space will still be taken care over there. So that may create unnecessary space and then may lead to memory issues. And similar way, like suppose you are going to create a linked hash map. Okay, in the linked hash map also I have seen a lot of memory spaces are being taken care where it is not being collected as an garbage collection. Okay, and one more thing important, heap memory, although I mean Java virtual machine is running garbage collection and marking and then sweeping everything from that object, but finally I mean, from the RAM, how it will be deleted, that depend on operating system. So operating system has the final control that you must be knowing. Okay. So this is with respect to memory management. Stack overflow error will come. I mean, out of memory error, I told you like when this memory heap space, permanent gen space, everything will be full. Stack overflow error means suppose you are running infinite recursion loop and it is keep on going on, and then you will get a stack overflow error. I mean, it is not getting stopped anywhere, and then stack also have a default memory, then it will throw a stack overflow error. So if you get a stack overflow error, then you see maybe you would have created some calling which is being called internally by itself. Maybe there can be infinite recursion that may happen. So that only happened due to that reason. Fine. So I mean, how many algorithms that run with respect to garbage collection? There are 4 garbage collection algorithm. As of now, the default that has come, that is as an G1 garbage collector. Okay, so earlier like marking and sweeping was done in same way that I explained you, but later on time by time it has been improved, and now we are actually having the G1 garbage collector that is by default for Java. And anyhow, you can want to know how much memory space is there, how much total memory is there, that also you can know by calling some methods. I mean, and also you can force to do the garbage collection, but as I told you, maybe your garbage collection will run in the JVM, but finally the memory is being clean or not, that depends on operating system. So you can force it, I mean garbage collection, but it will actually happen or not, that I mean that you cannot ensure. Okay, so this is with respect to garbage collection. If you want to utilize some tool also, you want to know how much I mean why, I mean in general, if these kind of issues happen, I mean unnecessary object creation are being done and garbage collection is also not running fine, so what will happen, what will the result, your application will always run very slow, and sometime it may happen after running sometime it is being crashed. So if this kind of similar issue used to happen, then you try to use some tools, I mean visual tools, through which you can easily analyze your code. I mean many tools are there, but in general Visual VM is also a tool which in general any developer can use, can find out, I mean how much CPU memory is being taken care, and how many, I mean, what is the actual cost that is happening. In general, code review is also being done, and I mean JMeter tool is also there that in general we used to implement, through which we judge the performance of any object or any method also, right? So that also we in general used to follow. So I mean that is with respect to garbage collection. Any query over there with respect to garbage collection by anyone? Okay, so it is clear, right? Okay, I'll run fast. Maybe we are running short of time as well. I mean, with respect to control statement, I believe, I mean, everyone must be aware of this. If still you have any query, you can ask me. I mean, I'll just show you one code also. I had created this with respect to control statement. Here what I'm do, I mean calling if else control. If you see, if you have some condition, on the basis of condition you want to execute anything, then you can use if else condition. I mean, let you know one thing, any software that is not going to complete without control statement, I mean most of the time I have seen many developers, they take this I mean control statement very lightly. But when you are going to develop this software, there will be, I mean multiple or condition will also happen, multiple and condition will also happen. So how you are going to add that it is important for you to understand the acceptance criteria of the stories. I mean, now what does it mean by acceptance criteria, and what I am talking about is story. See, I mean I'll just let you know how nowadays everyone is working in an organization. You must all be aware of this agile methodology, right? So what do you mean by the way we work in agile scrum way? Anyone aware of that? How do we work in agile scrum way?
Sir, meetings and discussions are held before starting any work. Then uh, they try to, achieve some task associated or
Hmm.
given to them for a particular week. Then they provide feedback. Then again, new tasks are assigned.
Hmm. Correct, correct. I mean, I'll just give you, I mean, brief overview about that. Earlier, how we were working, I mean, we were collecting all the requirement from the clients, okay? Then all the requirements are finalized in a bulk, okay? And then we were designing the solution. After designing the solution, we were developing the code. Then we were testing, right? And then we were providing the solution to user for user testing. Then user were telling, okay, now market is changed. We want something else, something else. So I mean, that is actually known as waterfall methodology. I mean, up to 6 to 10 months, if you take that much space and that much time in today's world, I mean, your competitor will be far ahead. So I mean, agile help you to be pace with the market trend and do the changes in a frequent way. And how it happened? We follow three ceremonies where one is that is to create minimal viable product. I mean, when you collect the requirement, it does not necessarily require you to create each and every requirement in a bulk and then only start. The basic thing that you need to do, I mean, for an example of Ola, I mean, in a Ola, what used to happen? You need to call a cab, right? So even if I'll give you some mobile numbers to connect, I mean some toll-free number to connect, you call the toll-free number, you tell your location, and your cab will come. Why you need such a big app, right? So that is a kind of minimal viable product. I mean, in general, I mean, reality also, that's the way Ola also, went on to the production. What they did in a first app, they just given the number on the location basis only. So when you type, I mean, Mumbai, you type Delhi, you will get some numbers only. You call to that number and your booking will be done. I mean, that is a minimal viable product. And later on, they kept on enhancing, like to provide the maps and then some additional features that you see in a reality as of now. So that is how agile works. You create a minimal viable product, and then all the requirements are being treated as a story. So every story that you understand, that is a kind of requirement. And with each story you will provide some input parameter and an output parameter that you must be knowing. For this story, what should be the input parameter, right? And what are the test cases that you need to run, and what will be the final outcome, so that I will say this story is completed. So that is known as definition of done. So I mean, that is known as acceptance criteria. Acceptance criteria, I mean, test cases. I mean, so on the basis of test cases, you will know what should be the or condition. On this or condition, I mean, payment should be done or not. In this and condition, I mean, KYC is must or mandatory or not. Like in a similar way, you will write multiple condition, and that will be taken care in the control statement. Like, so it depend on you how you are going to write if else condition. So it is must for you whenever you are going to write any if else condition, any switch case statement, any for loop statement in your organization for your solution. I would recommend you always you try that separately in a simple smaller method, right? So that once you are, I mean, satisfied the output that is coming proper, then you implement in a actual code. Because even through the one single condition, I have seen severity one or two issue used to happen in production, and you will have to shut down your application for some particular time. You'll have to take the downtime. Okay, so I mean, it is very much important. You do not take it lightly. Always run your code in a parallel, and then only you implement in the actual code. Fine. So I mean, with respect to if else, I mean, this simple code is there. With respect to calling switch statement, I mean, now it is allowed you to, I mean, either you use string in a case block, either you can use character, either you can use integer values. That is also allowed nowadays in a switch case method. And calling a while loop condition here also. I mean, if you see while condition I have given at a last, first execution is happening. The similar way here, while condition is given at a first, then execution is happening, and then increment or decrement is happening. Okay. Now, I mean, I hope everyone is aware of this num minus minus. Okay, and I mean, what do you mean by num minus minus? It is like num is equal to num minus 1, right? I mean, variable will decrement by minus 1. Now, I'll ask you, if I'll have to decrement this variable by 2 or 3, will it be allowed? How will do in as a shortcut? Can I do in this way? Or minus 2 I can write over there? Is it possible?
No.
Yeah, correct. So I mean, every time you can do decrement or increment using a shortcut, minus minus or plus plus, it can only do by one only. You can never ever do, I mean, by two or three. So here also, if you see num2 minus minus, so num2 is actually a variable name that is making you confused over here. Okay. So just to clarify your concepts only. And now if I'll come to, yeah, here it is important for you to understand break concept, I mean continue concept and return concept. Okay, so let us go through this for each loop concept also. I mean basic for loop everyone is aware. Nowadays we are also using enhanced version of for loop where we are not writing the for loop in a traditional manner where we need to initialize one variable by default. I mean from here it will start. Okay, then for one it will start, will do the execution, then it will go over here, it will increment the number by 2, then it will check the condition like 2 is less than equal to 10 or not. If it is less than equal to 10, I mean this condition is true or false. If it is true, then again it will execute that particular method. Similar way it will go till on, like if when it will become 11, then this condition will false and then this method will not be executed. The similar way, I mean an enhanced version of for loop nowadays everyone is using, where what they are doing, just defining simple element of whatever has been defined like in a block, and that you will keep on looping and will assign over here, and that you can print over here. So this is a for each loop that we call, but I can also call it as an enhanced version of for loop. Okay, now we'll come to that break portion. If you see over here, even in the switch case, you see over here, I mean I have written break everywhere. So what is happening over here, whenever a condition is satisfied, I mean it is validated, then that will break. I mean break means it will come out from that loop. If I won't write break over here, so what will happen, it will keep on going inside, I mean other things also. I mean what will happen, it will run the default method as well. Okay, so I mean if I'll write, suppose Chrome is over here, so I'll skip this break method. So what will happen, what will be the output? The output will be the browser is Chrome, and then also the browser is not supported will be printed. So which is a bug, that should not happen, right? So what should happen, if Safari, Edge or Chrome, anything that is not there, then the browser is not supported should come. And then how it will come, whenever that particular condition is being checked, and then you come out from that loop. Okay, using the break condition. Similarly for continue, you want to skip that condition, I mean even odd variable you want to print, right? So I mean whenever odd condition is there, then you need to skip and will want to move ahead, and you want to continue with other variable, then you will use the continue. So understand this continue statement as an skip. So skip that particular statement for execution. So this is called as an continue. Now if I'll call this return also, so I mean anywhere if you are going to write return, so what will happen, it will go to previous block. Okay, so I mean that is what the return does. So if I'll ask you, try catch exception method that we have seen just now. If I'll write return over here, right? Suppose after write I'll write return over here. What will happen?
It will come out of the try body.
It will come out from the try. Okay. So finally will be printed or not?
No, sir.
Okay. So let us see. Let us try. See, finally is printed. Okay. So what you read in a book and what you understand as a concept, always do practical. Okay. So that's how you will be able to gain more knowledge. Understand? So everyone must be doing the practical from now onwards, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. Let us move ahead. I have less time actually. So if else, break, continue, return also you read. Okay, one more thing I'll ask you over here. So here finally is printed. Now if I write here system dot exit. Now finally will be printed or not? Okay, so now finally will not be printed. Okay, because what will happen, it will let that thread to close. Okay, I mean, so never ever use system.exit 0. I mean, just letting your all concept aware. I mean, these kind of question actually used to come in good companies, good organizations as a puzzle to test your knowledge, even as a fresher, as an experience as well. So I just wanted to let you all know. Okay, so I mean, whenever you do, as I told you again, I am letting you know, don't take anything lightly. Okay, do practical, run the code, okay, in your machine, and then only check the concept, even for if else loop condition as well, right? You try adding and or multiple blocks, right? Create multiple things. Okay, so I mean, I actually I have a meeting actually as of now in my organization over here from 12 o'clock. So what should we do? Can we I mean connect again tomorrow? I mean, anyhow, I had already planned for Friday as well. I have to cover multiple things as well. I mean, arrays I need to cover, and then difference between abstract class and interface, why, how, and when to use. Then some important points like strings. I mean, these are must actually. Pass by value, pass by reference in Java, overloading, overriding in detail, final versus finally method, finally difference between double equal and equal. Okay, I mean, I'm covering these all things so that you all should be able to create any interview that you go, either for Google, either for Amazon, either for TCS, any interview you should be able to crack. So I am covering everything actually over here with respect to clearing your concept. I mean, many things I am still need to cover. So can we have this session one again tomorrow, if you all okay?
Fine. What time?
Okay, so I mean, I hope today's session was helpful just to realize you all. I mean, it is important to clear your concept by doing the practical, by writing the code. Fine. So do this activity, whatever I have told you. Try some hands-on, try some do permutation combination with all the parameters. I mean, even with respect to public static void main as well, and then I mean, create similar method of main method. Okay, and then I mean, compilation error won't come if you write two main method as well. Then which one to execute, that also you can call, and then I mean, everything you do it practically, right? And also with respect to protected, I told you. Okay, and even with respect to try catch, finally you try to do some hands-on writing return and then system.exit, right? And write multiple exception blocks as well, and multiple things that we have tried to cover. Everything you write, that will help you to gain the good knowledge from the practical point of view. So let us again connect tomorrow at 9 o'clock. I hope that will be okay for all of you. Okay, so same Zoom meeting maybe we can use.
Yeah.
Okay, okay. So thank you everyone. Thank you for your valuable time. I hope.
Thank Prashant.
Okay,
Really
okay.
good.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.